We're gonna talk about Fringe, you guys. You ready? Am I wearing it right? I don't even know. I'm not wearing it right.
No. That's going in the blooper reel. I know we don't actually have a blooper reel. I think that's the right way. I don't know. Whatever.
Whatever. I'm wearing the hat on my head.
You are, because now that
Whatever. Ready, Fringe?
Oh yeah. I can't get it out. That's what.
Oh, yay! Cookie time!
We had 2 cookies this time
And
so
mine.
far, guys.
Well, see, I will say that this season I'm not really grading against itself.
Okay.
For 2 reasons. Because every season is like a reset in a lot of ways.
Right.
So it's hard for me to compare too many elements anyway.
Okay.
It's easy enough to compare how much I'm enjoying it, but I will say that because I know this is the 5th season, the final season, my enjoyment is skewed by the fact that it's ending. Because I put more weight on every episode because they're the last ones we'll see, and I'm also a lot sadder when I watch it regardless of what's actually happening on the screen. And so knowing that, I don't want to like assume it's all the production's fault. It's a little my fault too, if I'm, So, but that being said, I think they've done a really great job this year because they've paid off a lot of things that I personally thought I saw coming, but never knew if really was coming because the show has always gone different places than I've expected and taken tangents and, had fun with itself and reset itself. So there were things, like Peter, it's putting the tech in his head.
Right.
I kind of always, from the start of learning about the Observers, thought he was going to turn into one. And they never went that fully there, but they gave me some of that. To say everything that you thought, you're not completely crazy, And so there were elements of that, and just the elements of, I really like the whole, scavenger hunt aspect of them, racing against time, in a lot of ways. Racing against themselves and putting together these pieces of a giant puzzle that may or may not even work out. Obviously we all hope that it works out, but it's Fringe, so I don't expect a big happy ending for everyone. We've seen already, not everyone gets a happy ending. So,
It's too early for
but that too, the fact that early in the season they basically were like, we're not being precious about this. We're not gonna let everybody go to the end. We're gonna treat these characters and their situations the way that are realistic for them. The minute Nina was found out she was captured or caught, I knew exactly what was gonna happen. It didn't take anything away from watching it and being so emotional seeing it, having gotten to really like that character for so many years.
See,
So just all of that, that added, there's still the element of the mystery, and there's still the element of the Fringe events and the science and the crazy out there stuff that I could never in a million years come up with, and then the real emotional family at the center of it, I just feel like is really firing on all cylinders this year. And, that's what you want in a season when it's the last, and when that they have a plan, they're sticking to it, and they're gonna tip their hat to those of you who have been paying attention.
tip their hat.
I didn't do that on purpose, but yes. And okay, never mind. Anyway,
See, I actually did grade it against last season, and I think, last season, especially the beginning of last season, it was more about the beginning of last season, and, last season was tough because at the end of season 3 with erasing Peter, that was such a massive, massive, massive gamble, and I kind of was going into that thinking, these guys have pulled off the unfathomable before and made it plausible and made it amazing. Let's see what they can do, and let's give them the season to see what they can do, and I kind of had, saying I gave them more rope than I would have with most other producers, it sounds kind of mean, but at the same time, it's something that I gave them much more leeway than I would have with a lot of other shows because of how much they've taken on in the past and how well it's worked out.
I mean, that's kind of what I was saying about the fact that it's the final season.
Right.
If I think I see something coming and it takes a little longer to get there, it's the final season.
Right.
So I'm gonna let you be a little sentimental and it doesn't bother me the way that I would nitpick it if it was much earlier.
Right. So with last season, it didn't. There were definitely elements I liked, but it didn't end up ultimately being what I'd hoped from that end of season 3 twist. Whereas I feel like with season 5, even though we're definitely, you know, strangers in a strange land with this time jump,
Right.
it definitely, I don't have the feelings that I had at season 4. I don't have the, this is not my show, this feels weird. What is my emotional attachment? There was emotional attachment from the start. I mean, it's one of those things where we have been kicked in the guts constantly, repeatedly, you know, even if it's telegraphed pretty clearly. I mean, with the Nina thing, you know, if you go back and rewatch the episode, you know, 10 minutes in,
Oh yeah.
you know, when she's talking to Olivia, it's pretty clear she's not surviving it.
Yeah, and I thought Etta
And
too. Even back in earlier in the season, I thought it was pretty clear she wasn't going to be around
Yeah.
for the entire season. And when they got into that situation, I was like, oh, all right,
Okay.
you know, and like it's still
Yeah.
sad.
No, and
even when
and
you can, you know, I mean,
Yeah, and
it
I
pays
will-
itself off.
And I actually will say, I think it's kind of phenomenal how much I was actually moved by, speaking more of Nina and Taki's. Etta was emotional,
Well,
and
I
that
think
kind
you're
of.
more moved by Nina because you got to know her longer and you have more of an attachment to
Yes,
her.
and I feel like they're. Yes, that's definitely.
And
the
because
case.
she's protecting them in a different
Well, I mean,
way.
they all, there was both protecting, but for me, I felt like with Nina, you know, when it happened, it was kind of, yes, it, you know, it wasn't a surprise. It hit me during, when I was watching the show, and then Fringe is one of the shows I do watch live. I was sitting there sad, and then I'm like, they came back from the commercial break, and I'm like, they're gonna find her body.
Right. I didn't really, yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's,
See, I was hoping they weren't going to watch the footage. Like, the body would have been enough, and I didn't.
see, and
And so, like, little things like that normally I would
See-
nitpick, I'm like, I'm going to let it go,
See,
because
and
we're saying goodbye to someone we love.
I actually really liked that because I
So-
felt like that was one of those things where, you know, I thought that scene was phenomenally done. Like,
Well, but-
every single one of those actors was just incredible. Because, like, Anna,
Yeah.
poor Anna. Poor Anna.
She's been
Olivia.
through it. She's
Anna's
been
had to
through
do
it this year.
emotions. John Noble's face. I
Right.
just
But,
can't.
but
And
I mean,
then-
like, finding the body, you still would have gotten those reactions.
Yes.
What I mean when I say I'm going to let it go is there have been a lot of, or not a lot, but there have been moments this season where they've explicitly said something that I thought they had already made very clear.
I don't know if the characters would have realized that. That she sacrificed herself for them.
But I don't think they needed to say it. I don't think that they needed to realize
because
it.
Olivia wasn't looking,
I
Peter had to
know.
verbalize it.
But that's what I'm saying is I don't know that they needed to watch the tape and realize it. I think the audience needed to realize it.
I
And I
mean-
think the audience realized it the minute it happened, if not sooner.
Of
I don't,
course.
and so that's because
mean-
they, you know, I almost feel, I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, there's only a few left, but like I almost feel like you have that much more fire in your gut if you think they took her out. And to know
See, I
now that
disagree.
I don't know yet because like I said, I haven't seen it. But
No.
but regardless of like what's to come, in that moment I was kind of I just have a thing when something's very clear to me as an audience member, and then they still take the time to like
I mean,
knock
that-
you with it.
normally
Normally I would be like, oh my god, what the hell? But because it is something that's emotional, I'm saying like it's not as big a deal to me as it
Well, see,
would have been.
I actually felt that was actually kind of necessary in that case, only because I felt like they've already known that they've already had someone be taken out against their will
Right.
with Etta. To have her do this and have her make the sacrifice, because you know you never know, you don't know what would happen. It's like because they just found her body, they had no knowing. You know, if they had lost another person, you would think, yeah, it's a brutal world. It sucks. To know she made this choice and she made a
Oh, I see.
sacrifice gives them that
Okay.
much more purpose, to me at least. So
Yeah.
I think for them to find that out kind of gave them, I mean, not that they needed the extra kick, the kick was there, but it gave
Yeah,
them
maybe.
another thing to, you know, it's kind of one of those things where like, dude, she just gave her life to help you out for this one scenario.
I think for me,
make it go.
you know what I think for me, it was just the repetition so soon. Like
Got
if
it.
there was a way for them to figure it out,
Later.
not even later, but just without having to repeat it immediately
Fair.
and then physically say it. But like I said, I mean,
Yeah.
like when it's this close to the end, I was
Yeah.
in tears anyway, and I was like, oh my god, you
Yeah.
guys,
I-
like I'm not gonna worry about
And I
like.
actually been good with not.
Oh, that was
No,
brutal.
that was
I was
brutal.
good for the majority of the season.
I was
but
good the
that
majority
was-
of the season, and then I feel like the last couple, and there's stuff coming up.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, so
I'm not.
shh.
They're not going to see it yet. I'm not going to ruin it.
Well, I don't know when this is posting.
It's still not going to get posted. It's going to get posted before it airs. But still, I'm not going to ruin that. But I feel like
I
You
know.
know, yes, it is the knowledge that it's coming to an end. Like you said, we know it's coming to an end. It's closing.
Obviously.
And that is unfathomably sad in
Right.
many other
and
ways
part
too.
of it too is just that they all get a proper goodbye, whether
Right.
or not it's a happy goodbye.
Yeah, Blair was clearly
Right, but-
delighted
but-
about her goodbye.
No,
and it's
but
like,
that was perfect for
Yeah.
that character.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, not everyone has to sail off into the sunset.
Right.
And live 500
And-
years together.
no,
but
and I mean, it's one of those things where it's, you know, for me, you mentioned the tipping the hat to the old
I
things.
did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I did, but I did.
As we're wearing hats. But there have been so many little winks and nods to
Yeah,
the fans.
yeah, yeah.
There have been, and you know, as someone who has watched the show since the pilot, who's covered the show extensively,
I'm sure there's things I haven't noticed that you've noticed.
yeah, I mean, there have been, I feel like every single episode there are things that it's just like, you know, whether it's the symbols on the door that we see between the episodes, you know, Walter's storage unit. I was like, there's so much history.
I know, yeah.
Not that timeline issues, I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole other story. But no, there's so much that's just being brought up and, you know, will be brought up about the things that made the show special. And I really, you know, when you have a final season, and, you know, a lot of shows have final seasons this year.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are not handling it well, or did not handle it well. Others, you know, I feel like Fringe feels like it's completely aware this is the final season. We have
And
only
that
this much
matters.
time,
It means
and it
something.
matters. It means something, and they may break our heart in the meantime.
Oh, well, yeah. They're gonna. Come on.
But no, I'm actually really, really, just, you know, there have been some talk about, you know, the pacing not necessarily being consistent, and I know I've talked about, I kind of feel like it's more cable style pacing where you don't necessarily have the same
Yeah.
straightforward, you know, it's different every week,
yeah.
but I'm enjoying the different feel to the season. They do reboot. I'm enjoying it. Can we ask someone not to let it leave us?
I've already done that. It seems to do no good.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just move on before we get all sad again.
There may be tears.